Hello, and welcome to Metaphysical Happy Hour. I'm your host, Cassie Clayton, and
I'm your co-host, Tracy Escobar. Hi. Welcome to the show. Yay.
Welcome to the show,
guys. Nice to see your face again. I missed the last time.
I know, but we're glad that you're okay.
My nose is looking straight. It's looking okay.
It is, yes.
Well, I'm back. So I missed you all last time. I missed just connecting with everybody. So super glad to be back. We have a really great show planned for you guys. I just can't wait to bring our guests. But Cassie will read the bio and everything. But just a reminder, if you are listening, if you're online, if you're on TikTok, make sure to ask questions, leave in the comments questions, and we will ask our medium who will be interviewing today. Or you can ask me and Cassie anything. So we'll be doing readings towards the end of the show. Yes?
Yes.
So if you have a question, we're just doing kind of card pulls, but please pick our brain, pick our talent's brain, our guest brain, and shameless plug that I'm going to do really quick for me personally.
Yep.
At the beginning of the month, my book finally released and it came out. You Can Be a Medium, How a Red Couch Led Me to Mediumship and Turn My Pain into Purpose. So we are super excited that it's finally here. And the feedback that I'm getting is it doesn't matter if you want to be a medium or not, that the book is just really good for healing, for overcoming some of life's challenges, just for having a new perspective. So I encourage you to get it, to read it. It's available currently on Amazon. And then Cassie just loaded it to my website. So if you want a signed copy, you can now get that actually on my website directly and I'll sign it and mail it to you. But otherwise, available on Amazon. All right, are we ready to get started?
We are. I am really excited about our guest because she's from one of my favorite places, which is Ireland. And so we are going to talk about like Banshees and mediumship and fairies and all the mystical, wonderful things that comes with Ireland. So welcome, Sandie Byrne, to our show. We are so excited to have you with us.
Hi,
well,
Sandie.
top of the morning to you, Cassie. I can officially say that because it's 1 a.m. here. So
oh my God.
The top of the morning.
It's the very top.
Thank you for having me. It's so good to be here.
Oh, thank you for staying up or getting up. I'm not sure which one you did, but thank you.
Yes. I stayed up. If I got into my bed, there'd be no getting me out of it.
That would be me. I'd be awful. I have a quick question because there's so many people who connect so strongly to Ireland. And so I'm just going to put the question out there really quick for TikTok, for our Facebook, just of a show of hands. Like you can just comment later all throughout and we'll tally it up at the end. But I want to know who's got this weird fascination or connection to Ireland, right? You think maybe you had another life there or something? Because I get that a lot. People will come like for a past life reading, and there's a lot of connections to Ireland. My aunt like swears that's where she's from in a different life. There's such a strong connection, right? Do you find that too, Cassie? Yeah. So Cassie, so that's your connection.
Well, I am one of those people. So
yay! Raise your hand. Raise your hand.
Yes.
Me too.
So yeah.
Someone just said their great grandmother.
We're like ants. We've just gone out all over the world, you know, populated everywhere.
People actually ask me all the time. They're like, because I get so excited about Ireland. They're like, have you done any of like the genetic testing or whatever? And I'm like, no, I was adopted. I got to pick which country I belong to. I would not go look it up because I would be so sad if Ireland did not show up.
It probably would though, because I think there's very few people in the United States, like with European background, that don't have Irish in them somewhere.
Right? Yeah. Someone just told me they're from Galway, Ireland on TikTok.
Galway.
So we've got people from Ireland watching. Well, maybe not from Ireland right now, but maybe from the beginning. No one's up at 1 a.m. watching TikTok.
I did my DNA test and I was extremely disappointed to find that I'm only 97.5% Irish, because I am actually just 97.5. I'm actually 2.5% Finnish, apparently.
Oh,
yeah, that's kind of cool though.
But I think everybody here probably has an ounce of Scandinavian in them because of the Vikings, right? And the red hair also comes from the Viking. So
Yeah, Donna
here we
Reed said
go.
mostly Scotland, but I have ancestors from Ireland. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, we're all Celts, Scottish, Irish, Welsh, we're all Celts.
somewhere. My ancestors
Yeah.
are from Germany. I need to do a DNA test. My aunt, like I told you, she did one because she swore she was from there. And no, she's not. Anyway, she was back highly disappointed.
I lived in Germany for a little while, so
Did you?
I
Yeah.
identify as German also.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, because you're from Ireland, Cassie's got some fantastic questions for you since she's a fan. So I'm going to let her ask a few questions first before I dive in. I'm going to hand over my hosting cat to Cassie really quickly.
Hosting reins.
Hold the reins. Go, Cassie, go.
Okay, so first off, I want to kind of dive into the fun facts that we were talking about just right before we started the show. And since we are right at that corner where we are turning into Halloween season,
Yes.
so you were explaining to us that that actually originated in Ireland.
It
Tell us
is,
more.
yeah. It's an
Tell us.
Irish festival. It's actually called Ihahauna here. So it came from us. So like going out across the world, we brought it to the States with us. So basically where the whole thing started was back in the day, everybody kind of lived by the coast, you know, but the farmers would take their animals up to the hills for the summer for grazing. And at this time of year, they would all come back down from the hills, and people would light bonfires to welcome them home, hence the tradition of the bonfire. And also, there was obviously, you know, we're a pagan country. There was all this superstition about spirits and ghouls and all that kind of stuff. So, because everybody was out to welcome everybody home from the men folk, if you like, the boys and the men home from the hills after the summer, there was a superstition that the ghosts were out to catch the children. So, in order to try and fool the spirits, people used to dress the kids up as scary, whatever kind of scary form that they could. So, to try and fool the spirits, maybe even scare the spirits away. And they also used to carve turnips. The pumpkin is the American part of the festival. We always carved turnips. And even when I was a child, fado, as we'd say, a few years ago, we would carve turnips. The pumpkin has only come into Ireland maybe in the last 20 years or so. Before that, it was always turnips. So if you Google a carved turnip, you will see exactly how scary that looks. And that's what they used to use
Really?
to scare. Yeah, it looks so scary. Not at all like the pretty little pumpkin things. Yeah, carved turnip really looks scary.
I'm going to look it up when we're
And
done.
they're quite hard to carve as well. You kind of well nowadays we can microwave them to soften them, but you know if you couldn't do that like back in the 80s when I was a child, you used to kind of cut your hand carving turnip.
Yeah.
But so yeah, all these traditions were brought across the pond, as we say, over to the States when people left, and it just became a huge festival over there. But it originated
It's
here in Ireland.
crazy. That's
Yeah, yeah.
there's so many traditions and so many things from here that weren't even that we do that aren't from here at all. Like someone was telling me, like, oh, what is it? That nursery rhyme where you run through people's hands. What is it? Red Rover, send someone right over. Like
Oh,
someone was
where
telling
you
me
have to
that was like,
break through. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Like there's like
yeah,
history behind all that stuff, and it was all brought from other countries when people migrated here and stuff. So I think it's just fascinating. I never knew about Halloween. Never. Do you
yeah.
guys believe like
Now
that's
you know.
now we know. Do you believe, like here in America, we believe it's like the thinnest the veil is on those nights? Is that the same kind of, or did we make that up? Or is that the same kind of thing you guys believe?
Yeah, well, that's what they believed back in kind of the pagan days.
Pagan days.
I mean,
Okay.
you know this as mediums, you know, people think, you know, okay, well, Halloween is the time, or I'll go
Yeah.
for a reading when it's somebody's birthday or somebody's
Yes.
anniversary. And it's
Yes.
not necessarily that spirits are any more contactable or, you know, tangible at that time of year. It's just that, like anything, we're told that they are. And when you're told that something is more accessible at a particular time, you're more aware of it, and that's why you connect better. But it's the same as
Ah,
any other day of the year. It
Is
really
it?
is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You know,
Let's
people
talk
do,
about,
they come for mediumship readings on birthdays or anniversaries, which is fine. I totally get it, you know, but it's more that your awareness is heightened because you're expecting them to be around. But your
yeah,
loved ones are around you all the time, you know, so
all
it
the
doesn't take
time.
a special occasion. Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Oh,
doesn't.
that's good. That was one of my questions actually. So thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know people will come on an anniversary, they'll come on a birthday, right? Just because they think that. And I tell them the same thing. You can do it anytime, but I understand why they want to do it. It's like a celebration for them. It's whatever it is. Yeah. So interesting.
Oh,
Before we came on the
100%.
show, before we came on the show too, you talked about fairies and banshees. I'm gonna let Cassie totally take this one too. Fairies are not my thing, but they're a Cassie's thing. So we're
They are
switching
my
today.
thing. So as you're doing readings with people, how do you weave that energy in with your readings? Or I know some people
No,
do, some people don't.
no, I don't personally work with fairies. I mean, as regards the mediumship work that I do. Now, fairies is just a part of everyday life in Ireland, you know,
Is
and
it?
I have to be honest and say I'm not an expert on it. You will find a
Yeah.
lot of experts on it. But for example, just if you look out, well, if it wasn't the middle of the night, I could look out the window here. There's a fairy fort right behind my house, and there's thousands of these all over Ireland. So basically, you've got two different kinds. You've got ring forts, okay? Ring forts were built by people to protect the animals, right, back in the
Mhm.
day. So they're man-made. A fairy fort is more of vegetation, okay?
Oh,
So it's like a ring of trees or bushes or plants or whatever. And this is perceived to be the crossing over point between the physical world and the fairy world. So you do not mess with the fairy fort,
you
okay?
don't mess with
You
the
will
fairy fort.
no, you
No.
will find roads are built around fairy forts. They really have to, you know, route them around the fairy forts. And there's lots of stories, like my husband even, he was telling me a story a couple of years ago of he was working, he's like a project manager, and he was working on a new motorway that they were building. And there was an engineer that was from abroad, and he was like, you know, knock down the fairy fort and like would build through it because it's cheaper. And everyone's like, no, we can't do that. And he was like, no, go straight through the fairy fort. We're not spending the extra money to go around it. Everybody downed tools. They would not work. And that guy died that night.
Sure.
Honestly,
Don't
there's
mess
been
with the fairy
tales
forts.
of farmers who cut them down, you know, to plant in the field or to keep animals in there, and they might come out in the morning and find their herd slaughtered or anything. I'll tell you one you can relate to, right? You've seen the film Back to the Future with
Yes.
Michael,
Michael J.
what's his name?
Fox.
Thank
Michael
you.
Fox.
Yes,
Yeah.
Michael J. Fox. So do you remember the car that they used as the time machine, the DeLorean?
DeLorean. Yes.
They were made in Ireland, okay? In Belfast. And we all know what happened, right? They were really popular, and then all of a sudden, bam, they disappeared. So after the movie, the car got really, really popular, and loads
Yeah.
of people were ordering the cars. So they had to build a new, bigger factory for this. And in the process of building the factory, they built over a fairy fort.
Oh.
And we all know what happened. DeLorean went
Oh.
kaput, and the car,
Kaput.
yeah, car was gone, disappeared. Yeah. So it went from up there to down there just because they went through a fairy fort to build the factory. So it's like really bad luck. I've even seen it here, as I say, just behind my house, there's a fairy fort. And oftentimes the hunt will come through the fields here. I'm not a big proponent of the hunt, but they hunt. And, you know, all the hounds were out and they were chasing the poor little fox. The fox ran into the fairy fort and the hounds wouldn't go in,
They
and neither would
wouldn't.
the horses. No, they all stopped right bang at the edge of the fairy fort, the hounds and the horses, and they refused to go in.
To go.
Yeah, yeah, it's
I'm gonna have to
really
Google
bad luck.
fairies. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really bad luck.
I'll
Someone
send you
asked
some
me to
pictures of the ones.
sparkle.
Like even the animals are like, nope, we're not messing with it.
I tell you, if an animal says something is wrong, trust an
Trust the
animal.
animals. Mm-hmm.
Trust the animal.
100%. Yeah,
Percent. No,
they
100%.
sense everything.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. What about banshees? I never heard that term before. What's a banshee?
So a banshee, well, it comes from the Irish banshee. So ban is a woman, and she is like a fairy woman. So
Fairy woman.
ban would
Okay.
be actually what we would use if you're saying Mrs. You know, someone got married and you say Mrs. So I'm actually Ban Byrne. So I'm Mrs. Byrne. So ban is like a woman.
Woman.
So the
Okay.
banshee is it's kind of like a fairy woman, but she's kind of a bad news figure. Okay.
Okay.
So she follows only people with O or Mac in their name. This is the legend, okay? Because
Okay.
technically everybody that's Irish is O, okay? Because that's the Irish name. A lot of people just stopped using it because we weren't allowed to use it when the English ruled. We weren't allowed to use our Irish names. So
Okay.
names became anglicized. So O means son of, and Mac means son of. Okay, so that's where the names come from. So anyway, the legend has it that if you have an O or a Mac in your name, and all my family are O'Briens, and
Okay.
you would hear or see the banshee when someone's about to die. So it's a warning that there is going to be a death in the family. Yeah.
So
So
fascinating.
and there's different versions. There's a Scottish version and a Welsh version as well. I don't know much about
Okay.
them. I think in the Scottish version, there's it's a woman that's seen washing uniforms, so like soldiers' uniforms.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if someone's going to die, she's seen washing the blood off the uniform, and this is the sign of death. So
That's
with
amazing.
us, it's generally so she's a pale woman with long red hair. So generally, she's either combing her hair and kind of
Yeah.
crying, lamenting, or sometimes it's like a howl. Sometimes you just
Okay.
hear it like a howl. I heard her
How?
once.
Oh,
Mm.
you did.
I did. I heard it once, yeah, in my life. But my granddad and my great granddad, am I talking too much, or can I tell you a funny
No.
story?
Tell me. Yeah, that's fascinating.
My great granddad used to be the guy, like years ago, we didn't have undertakers. There was always somebody in the village that would, prepare a body for burial. So, and my great granddad was that guy in the village. And one night he couldn't sleep,
Okay.
so he was just pacing the floor, having a cup of tea as you do, and he looked out the window and he saw the banshee leaving the neighbor's house. Okay, now when I say the neighbor's house was 2 fields away. Okay, it wasn't right
Yes.
beside his house, you know.
Yeah.
So, and he was kind of looking up the hill and he saw the banshee leave. So he got himself dressed. He strapped his bag of cutrafugals to the back of the bicycle, and he took off in the middle of the night down the road. And just as he arrived at the neighbor's house, the priest was leaving the house, getting in his car to come and fetch my great granddad. And he said to him, he said, "Is somebody else dead?" And he said, "No, I came for so and so." He said, "But how did you know that he died?" And he said, "Ask your father, I saw the banshee leaving there a few minutes ago." He says, the priest nearly had a conniption.
Oh my God. How
Yeah, yeah,
crazy.
yeah. So
Like
he
Cassie's
was,
on.
yeah.
That's I want more. I want more. Cassie loves it. Yeah.
Oh, I do.
She's got tons of fairies in her
Yeah.
house too. It's funny.
Yes.
So the banshee, yeah. So she's I think she's kind of become a scary figure over the years,
Okay.
you
Has
know.
she kind of our like Grim
You'd
Reaper? Like if
love,
the Grim Reaper shows up here.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, a
Okay.
bit like the
Okay.
Grim
Yeah.
Reaper. You'd
Yeah.
love the movie Darby O'Gill. Have you ever seen that movie, Cassie?
No,
Oh my
I'm ready
God, you
to
should watch that
know.
movie. I think that was one of the first movies that Sean Connery was in. Like it's that old. He was in that movie before he was ever James Bond.
Oh
And
wow.
it's all about the leprechauns and the banshee and all of those
Yeah.
things. It's a bit twee, but it's generally shown on telly around St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of tradition and there's a lot of folklore and folk tale in Ireland. Yes?
Yeah, yeah, and surprisingly enough, like it's all survived, considering everything that we've been through,
Yeah.
and all the battles, and trying to get rid of
Yeah.
the Irish. But no, we're stubborn as hell. We just hold on to everything.
Hold on. Hold on. Someone asked for the name again. What was the name again of the movie? The name?
Darby O'Gill, Darby O'Gill and the Little People. The Little
Darby
People, of course,
O'Gill and
being
the
the
Little People.
leprechauns. Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds very Irish, doesn't it?
Sounds very Irish. I was going to ask you, since we're talking about Ireland and stuff, how how do they embrace mediumship? Is the spiritualist churches popular there? Is it through spiritualist churches? What's the feel on
I
mediumship there?
I only know of one spiritualist church, and of course
Okay.
it's in Dublin because, obviously
Yeah.
Dublin is the center of everything here. But yeah, no
Sure.
spiritualist churches, no spirit
Oh,
circles, no, nothing.
no.
So
Okay.
now and the majority of people would believe in it. So if you can imagine, right, I'm from Tipperary. So and if people
Yes.
don't know Ireland, okay, Ireland is shaped like a teddy bear. So
Yes.
we're the belly button. So we're slightly below center, right, of
Okay.
Ireland. So we're the belly button. Where I live, okay, obviously very Roman Catholic. The
Yeah.
town I live in used to train all of the Catholic priests. Okay, there's a huge
Okay.
college here in the center of town, and across the road from it is this massive cathedral. So I went to convent school with nuns for 13 years, and every morning going to school, you would see about 1,000 student priests processing across the street to the cathedral for morning mass. Like it was like really Catholic. You wouldn't talk. You just didn't go into school and say, "Ask your sister, I do see the dead people," you just don't do it, right?
Yeah.
So even though my grandmother, my great grandmother, my great great grandmother, they were all readers, and like my great grandmother, my poor grandmother, my mother's mother, she was very young. She was only 56 when she passed, God rest her. But her mother was a really well-known medium. People used to come and queue up. She did a little cottage in a place called Dundrum in County Tipperary. And people used to come and queue up outside her house from 6 o'clock in the morning. Like I'm talking like back in the day when people didn't have phones in their houses.
Yeah. Right.
And
Right.
but at the same time, she was fiercely religious. So there's a lot of debate about whether or not you can marry the two. And like
Mhm.
having grown up in a strictly religious background, but doing this at the same time, there's a huge crossover in my eyes, and I see the
Yeah.
crossover because a few weeks ago we went to a place called Knock, right? It's
Okay.
on the west coast of Ireland. And there's an airport there. Everybody's kind of heard of the airport, and we had two popes come to say mass there. So it's a very religious place. So 146, 7 years ago, Our Lady, okay, if and you're Catholic, Our Lady would be the mother of Jesus.
Yes.
She appeared there along with
Okay.
Saint Joseph and Saint Thomas Aquinas, okay. So the three of them appeared in this place. So it's now like a huge tourist attraction for people to come. But what's the difference between those three people showing themselves after death, or my great grandmother? You
Exactly.
know, to
Yeah.
me, there's no
There's
difference.
no
It's
difference.
life after death.
Yes.
So to
Yeah.
me, I see a huge crossover between the two. I get that not everybody would, but
I
yeah,
believe in it too. I can still, I'm a Christian,
yeah,
but I don't have to believe everything they tell you is in the Bible, right? I still have my own versions of what's right and wrong. But I still believe in God. I still believe in Jesus, right? I just don't. So there is kind of this crossover where you can do kind of both. But there's some
yes.
people who to say like mediumship in the Bible is like, oh, you're not supposed to do it, right? It's the work of the devil. Do you get any of that there in Ireland?
100%, yeah, you
Okay.
do. And
Yeah.
like you can find anything that you want in the Bible to back up an idea of something. There's so much stuff in the Bible. Yes, there is a place in the Old Testament where it says, you shouldn't talk to dead people. It's the devil, blah, blah, blah. And yet you go to the New Testament and Jesus and the apostles are going up the road to Galilee or wherever they're headed for, out of the town, no doubt. But they come across Moses, who has been dead for like 400 years, and he has this huge conversation with him on the road. So, is it right or is it wrong? If it's good
It's
enough for
wrong.
Jesus, it's good enough for me. So
Oh, no.
you can find anything that you want in the Bible to back up any cause. So I think, live and let live. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, me too.
I am.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
I meet everybody where they're at on their journey, right? And
Yeah.
everyone's different. I tell people, I don't care what you believe in something. Just believe in something, right?
Absolutely. And stand for it. And stand
And
for it.
have some
So
conviction about it. Yeah.
I agree. So I suppose going back to your original question, I'm terrible for going off in tangents, but going back to your original question, yes, in mediumship and spiritual, there's a huge belief in it, but
Yeah.
you've still got some like staunch religious people who think that it's a sin, and that's okay.
And that's okay
This is
too.
the way I look at it. I don't like sushi. I'll
Yeah.
just walk past that restaurant and go somewhere that I like. Okay.
Mhm.
I don't spend
Mhm.
hours on the street protesting because other people eat sushi. You know, You take what you want from life and just leave the rest behind.
And let people live. 100% agree.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Huh, Cassie?
I said, let people live.
That's going to be the motto after this show. Let people live. Stay in your lane. I know.
Well, I think because of what we do, over the years, we've got, like I still get the messages and the emails and saying you shouldn't be doing this, you're going straight to hell. I was interviewed on radio here.
Yeah.
And, I was talking to the guy and somebody rang in or texted in or whatever and said, you shouldn't be charging for what you do, you should do it for free. Yeah. And well, nice gestures are lovely, but my kids don't eat gestures, and the bank doesn't accept gestures for, my house payment.
House payment.
Yeah, of course. So, as it happened, I think there was Beyonce or someone that was playing in Dublin that weekend. And I said, well, look, she's charging €80 a ticket. And there was like, 20 or 30,000 people going. Her talent is no different than my talent, so why is it okay for her to charge and not okay for me to charge? Like, people are very selective, when they're choosing what they'll back. So, as you say, stand for something, but stand for what you believe in. And the other thing that really annoys me, and I'm on my soapbox about this one this week because I saw somebody do this online the other day. If you have to make a living by putting somebody else down, that's not a living. Make a living or create a reputation based on what you do, not on what somebody else does.
We see a lot of that on TikTok.
I probably watched the same video. Yes,
I see a lot of that on TikTok. Oh,
I saw a guy the other night, and he was just like, "Oh, if you do this or you do that, or people that do this," and I thought, you know what? Just make a video about what you do, not about what other people do.
Yeah, there's a guy on there. He goes specifically after mediums and psychics and tries to debunk them. And he's like, and his following is so aggressive and hostile. It's downright bullying. And I'm like, why do you care? Why do you care? Do your thing. He's a mentalist, right? So
okay. We have one of them in Ireland too. And actually, he came to speak to a group that I was in, and he started on about this. Oh, they're all fraudsters and they're this and that. And I just said to him, it's funny because I don't know one medium that has to put you down in order to make a living.
No.
Exactly. And he did not know what to say. He was just like,
I love that comeback. Like, we're not out there. Yeah. And the same with the religious people coming on our pages saying, oh, you work for the devil. I don't go on your page and say anything about you being a Christian, being a Catholic. I just don't understand why people just don't believe in what you believe and leave everybody else alone and just keep on going, right?
Yeah. But they believe in the devil, but not their own loved ones. See, this is where I find, because the devil is just a spirit, know. Anyway,
we can go. I've got questions about the
devil.
Well, you just led into another question I have written down about that because it's in America, there's a big debate on mediumship and what we believe in our belief systems. So some people from America who probably traveled to the UK and stuff and had teachers from the UK over here, there's not this belief in hell or demons or the devil and things like that. And then you have more woo-woo people from here. I don't want to step on toes or speak out of turn, but they are about duality. And if there's good, there's bad. And if there's a God, that there's a devil, and that there is this thing, and there is hell, and there is. What do you guys believe, or what's your upbringing tell you, or your belief system?
So, I mean, being raised Catholic, yes, there's a lot of talk about heaven and hell. Personally, and I think it's a Hindu idea about these 7 levels of eternity. And I really, there's a book by a guy called Stephen Turoff called 7 Steps to Eternity. And it was written like many years ago. And my mother got it for me we were in London visiting family, and we got it in an antique bookstore. And when I read it as a teenager, and it was exactly everything that I had been shown over the years by spirit, and it just became my Bible. And I said, oh my God, this is exactly the way I see it. And people often ask me, do you believe in, demons? Do you believe in bad spirits and energy? Now, I can only speak, everybody can only speak from their experience.
Experience,
And
yes.
yeah, I'm 48 years old and proud of it, because I know people that haven't reached this age. So I am 48 years old and I've never come across a negative energy. Okay. And if we have time, I'll tell you why I believe this. Okay, so if, and God forbid, I'm touching wood as I say it, if I were to have a car crash tomorrow and lose a leg, okay, then I would spend the rest of my life maybe with a fake leg or on crutches or whatever, okay? Someday I would pass over. Would you then expect me to spend the rest of eternity hopping around the afterlife with just one leg?
No.
No, because that's a physical injury, isn't it? It's nothing to do with my spirit or my soul.
Yeah.
So if you think of somebody like Hitler or Ted Bundy or whatever, okay?
Jeffrey
So
Dahmer right now in the United States.
yeah, I see actually there's something new on Netflix, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly.
So those people, Jeffrey Dahmer, they also have a physical affliction, but it's in the mind. It's not visible to us with the naked eye, but their physical affliction was in the mind. So my belief is that every soul arrives on earth pure, and we put up with whatever, body we're in. Because like,
Yep.
if you saw my spirit body, it's 5'11", very thin, blonde, pretty. That's what I'm going to look like when you meet me in spirit.
Okay.
So, but then when they die, and I have no doubt whatsoever that when Ted Bundy was put to death, that his spirit arrived back in the spirit world, the afterlife, the rainbow bridge, whatever you want to call it. He arrived back as a pure spirit, and he would have had an epiphany at that moment. And he would be like, did I really do this?
Yeah.
And yes, he will have to atone for what he did, but he doesn't burn in hell forever.
Right.
If you think of it like he gets a demotion and he has to work his way back up.
A level.
Okay.
So we're talking about the
Yes.
7 levels. Okay.
Yes, the 7 levels.
The 7
So, I
levels.
mean, he may have gone down 2 levels, okay, but he still will be able through, he can either choose reincarnation, okay,
Yeah.
so he can come back and maybe, he will be the murder victim the next time, or maybe he'll be, a detective that has to deal with, these murders, whatever. Or maybe he'll choose to stay in the spirit world, and maybe he'll choose to help murder victims as they arrive back to spirit and help them deal with what happened to them. He will have to atone for it, but he gets the decision as to how he'll do that.
I love that thought. I always had a hard time articulating what happens, right? I never believed in a hell either, but a hard time articulating why. I would tell people, if you think of God as your dad, like if your child did something really bad, would you stop loving them? Like you would, like it's your child, right? You would understand that there's a sickness, you would be a forgiving person. So that's kind of where I go, God would be the same way. There's so much forgiveness, and they know when we're sick, and they know when things are going haywire, and he would never punish you for that kind of stuff. So I believe the same.
Yeah. And, the idea that, Ted Bundy would spend eternity coming to haunt people or, terrorize women. I mean, no, like once I'm gone from this earth, you ain't seen me for dust, right? There has to be something better out there. I'm sitting up there playing my harp for eternity, right? But, why would somebody want to come back just to rattle chains or, walk up and down stairs with a sheet over them? Yes, it's put out there to frighten people and to get kids to bed early and all of this kind of stuff. But I don't have that belief that, anybody would want, or that, they would be allowed to come and terrorize us in that way.
No, I don't believe it either. I don't believe it either. I don't believe it either.
Definitely not.
Huh?
Yeah. No, I said definitely not. Definitely not.
I don't think so either. Oh God, I had something on the tip of my tongue about that. A lot of times people come to us and they'll ask us, well, what are my loved ones doing on the other side? Right? I love your whole 7-step theory. So what are you telling people when they come and ask you, well, what is they doing over there? What do they do all day?
Apart from sitting on clouds playing harps, you mean?
And there's no time, right?
They're only allowed to do that before midday, as far as I I'm joking, obviously. So, look, there's lots of stuff that people have to do over there, and the reason that we're here at all is to develop spiritually, and we will come back many, many times, okay, before, because just continuing on even from the example that I gave, okay, so
Yes.
Ted Bundy will have had several lifetimes. So he's the murderer. We know him in the lifetime where he was the murderer, but we
Right.
don't know him in the lifetime where he was the murder victim, or where he was the mother or the father of a murder victim, or of the murderer, or whatever. Okay. So we have to experience all of these things in every lifetime. We have to
Yeah.
experience the flip side of every single coin. Because if we don't have a full experience, how do we become more spiritual? Okay. So we can do it here or we can do it over there. Okay. And in the spirit world, there's a lot of people helping other people. Okay, so we'll all have our little jobs to do. Okay, so this idea of lying down, closing your eyes, and not ever doing a day's work again. Sorry, guys, I'm just about to
Sorry.
slash all of those hopes for you. But we
Yeah.
all have something that we need to do over there. So, for example, I lost a friend.
Okay.
It's coming up on 7 years ago now. She had a brain hemorrhage at work one day. She was only 2 months older than me, and she left. And she was looking forward to getting married and starting a family and all of this. She really wanted to be a mother, and she never got to be a mother. But I did connect with her through another medium, and she now works in the spirit world, and she meets and greets children who cross over before their parents, and she introduces them to their family and helps them get settled. So she's working with children in the spirit world,
Oh,
and
yeah.
some people will work with animals, some people, for example, people who've died by suicide, for example, they
Yeah.
may help other people who've died by suicide come to terms with everything that they've been through.
All
Okay.
their
And
experiences. Yes.
yeah, and
Oh,
where we want to end up, we all want to end up as a spirit guide. We all want to be promoted, we all want to end up being somebody's spirit guide someday. We can't all be, Joan of Arc, or, Red Bull, or whatever other people, the Dalai Lama.
the
Okay.
Dalai
But
Lama.
you hear of lots of people who have, like, they have this spirit guide that was once the Queen of France or whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just have people who were milkmaids or
Just
whatever.
the normal
So
people. Yeah.
absolutely. So someday I'm hoping that I will be promoted to that level, but I probably have
To that
several
level where we can do
lifetimes to
that.
go. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Well,
So
so
I
question.
don't know, does that answer your question?
No, it did. No, it's beautiful. That helps totally. I want to switch gears just a little bit because development is a thing for me too, and I wrote my book too. How, because there's no circles over there, how do people practice, or how do they get involved if they want to learn?
Um, are you talking about now or say years ago? So like now there's
Now.
online, everything's online. There's
Okay,
loads of places to learn, So
let's
I
talk
do
before
classes. There's lots
COVID.
of people to do classes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but like if you go back to, when I was growing up, okay, we didn't have the
Yeah.
internet, we didn't have mobile phones,
Okay.
we didn't even have color pictures. I'm joking.
I
But,
know. I'm
in
older than
my day,
you, so yeah.
which isn't over yet. So there's a huge tradition of storytelling. And even when I was growing up, in the, I won't even say the 70s because I'm only like 5 or 6 when we went into the 80s. Let's say the 80s, right? Um, we used to tell stories and we used to talk about our experiences, and we used to sit around the fire. Like, we didn't watch as much television then. Actually, we had 2 TV channels when I was growing up, and they were switched off at 10 o'clock at night. I mean, literally in Dublin, the television channels were switched off. There was nothing on after 10 o'clock at night. Okay. So you had no choice. You had to sit down and play cards or tell stories, whatever, and we would share our experiences, you know.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and my grandmother being a reader, and when I was probably only 6 or maybe even a little younger when my great grandmother died, but she was still alive when
Yeah.
I was born. But her being a reader and all her experiences, like she would have taught my grandmother, who would have taught my mother, who would have taught
Yeah.
me, so
Yeah.
we passed down the stories and the I suppose, what do you call it, are ways how you do it. How do you connect? How do you tell them things? How do you ask for signs? So this was all passed down,
To
through
you.
word of mouth. Yeah.
Love
But to
that.
everybody, it wasn't just me, it was everybody.
Everybody.
I have a cousin. I have a first cousin, my mother's brother's daughter, and
Okay.
we were raised so close. Okay, either she slept at my house or I slept at her house. We were like sisters. We were born just 5 months apart. And once, when I was a teenager, she said to me, Sandy, I need to talk to you. And it was like this really big secret. When you're teenagers, everything's so dramatic. Sandy, I need to talk to you. Come into my bedroom. Come in, come in, come in. I was like, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? And she said, Sandy, I think there's something wrong with me. She said, I hear people talking to me all the time. And I said, well, thank God for that, because I can see them. Yeah. And that was it. Yeah, she heard them. I saw them. So it was all good then. We didn't feel weird anymore.
I love that. Do you remember your fish experience?
I probably don't remember my first experience, but I do remember that when I was a child, I had a BFF. He was a little boy, and every single night his mother would bring him into my room and put him into bed beside me. And then she would sit and she would watch us all night. And I thought, he's just a little boy, and he's a randomer from somewhere, come up the stairs into my room. And it was only after my nanny died. I was 7 when she died, and
I'm sorry.
it was when, I know, I mean, these things happen. God bless her. She was a smoker. I said, Nanny, you shouldn't have been a smoker, but it was the done thing. She started smoking at 14. It was very fashionable back then. But it was only after she died, because I had this best friend up until the age of 7. And I remember him. He was this beautiful boy with blonde hair, but he was a dead boy, just so we're clear, he was dead. Okay. And when my grandmother died when I was 7, right, this was like a huge life-changing time for me, not only because she died, but I was at the hospital with my mum the day she died. And she died very suddenly. Yes, she had this lung condition, but she wasn't expected to die. Whatever injection they gave her, she literally was gone in 2 seconds. And so we were there in the hospital. It was 1982. There was no mobile phone, so my mother had to go to the nurse's office to ring her brothers and sisters. So I sat with my nanny. They just pulled the curtain around and left me sitting there with her. And I didn't know what passed away meant. Like, I don't think anybody at 7 understands what passed away meant.
No.
So to me, she was just asleep in the bed, and I was holding her hand.
Okay.
But at the same time as I was holding her hand while she was lying in bed, she was also standing behind me playing with my hair, because I have these red curls, and they used to be really, really long all the way down my back, and she used to love playing with my hair.
Yeah.
And she was standing behind me playing with my hair, and she's going, "It's going to be okay, sweetie." She said, it's fine. I'm not going to be far away and all this. And I was talking to her, having this conversation, and the nurse put her head in the curtain. She said, "Did you call me, lovey?" She said. I said, "No, I'm talking to my nanny." And she looked at her in the bed, and she looked at me, and she went, "Okay then."
Okay.
And yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So a couple of days later, we have funerals very, very quickly here. Within 2 or 3 days, you're buried. And so we went back to my grandparents' cottage after the funeral, for a few drinks and, more ghost stories and stuff. And my mother's one of 10 children, okay? And we were raised with them because my mother was a single mother, and we were raised with a lot of her brothers and sisters. Even though we had our own house, we were there more often than we were at our own house. So we were all very close. They were like brothers and sisters to me.
Yeah.
So when I saw one of my big brothers crying, I said to my mother, "What's wrong with Kevin?" I said, "He's crying." And she was like, all the, "Oh, well, Nanny's gone to heaven to live with Holy God," the spiel. And I was like, "But she's not. She's over there sitting
She's
beside
right
Granddad."
there. Yeah.
I can see her. Because
I see her.
my nanny, she used to sit on the arm of the chair. He had his armchair beside the fire. And she used to sit on the arm of the chair with her arm around his shoulders. And I could see her sitting there. And you could hear this like collective gasp in the room. Everybody went, "Oh," And so I went under the table, and I stayed under there for the rest of the day. So, and because then I knew that everybody, from that one experience, I started to realize that not everybody saw the people that I saw. So then I started to push everybody away because no child wants to be any different than any other child. Kids
Yeah.
want to be the same. So I stopped seeing my best friend. He didn't come to me
Okay.
anymore at night time. I stopped
Oh,
seeing my grandmother. I stopped seeing my great granddad, and I pushed it all away for a long time.
did you?
Um, yeah, but I think that happens with every child.
Yeah, a lot of
I
people.
don't, I don't believe in, sorry, I didn't mean to cut across you.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't believe in imaginary friends. I just don't. I
yeah.
believe it's spirit
Mhm,
because
mhm.
a few years after my nanny died, my granddad came to live with us because he was diagnosed with cancer, and obviously he was a widower. So he came to live with us, and my mother made a room downstairs for him, and because he couldn't make it up and down the stairs, he was so sick. Anyway, he passed away in our house, and years later, my sister had a daughter, and every time she brought her to my mother's house, she would go and sit in that room in the corner where my granddad's bed was, even though it wasn't a bedroom anymore, it was turned back into a living room. And she would sit there for hours chatting away. And my sister said to her one day, "Why do you always go into that room on your own?" She said, "I'm not on my own. The man in the corner plays with me."
Ah!
And she was talking, she used to go in there and play with the man in the corner. And she said, like, because with
Mhm.
kids, they hate looking up at you, they hate the fact that you're up there. And she says, he sits down on the floor with me. Now, my
Oh,
granddad he was 6'2", he was an army man, and he hated the fact that kids would have to strain their neck to look up at him. When I was a child, he would just sit down on the floor beside us and talk to us and play with us. And that's what she loved. She said, the man in the corner sits on the floor and plays with me.
oh, look at that. I love
Mm,
that. I love that.
yeah. So
What a great
every
experience.
child, I believe that they do
Yeah.
see spirit. But when, like happened with me, the logical side of their brain kicks in around 6, 7, 8 years old, and they know they shouldn't be seeing it, and therefore they stop seeing it.
So then what made you come back to it? How old were you when you came back to it?
Um, I was always having experiences. I had a very rough time as a teenager because my spirit guides wouldn't take no for an answer. I actually had a very aggressive spirit
Is
guide.
it
He used to come into my bedroom and he used to pull the duvet off the bed and he used to knock
okay?
stuff over in the bedroom. So I spent a lot of my teenage years sleeping with my mom, just
Okay.
so I get some peace. So really when I started to embrace it, again, I was 17 years old.
Okay.
And I was living in Germany at the
Oh yeah.
time, and I had gone out for a run, and I was almost kidnapped. So I was running, and it was in the middle of the what they call the Weinstrasse in Germany. It's where they grow all they make all the wine. Okay, it's just vineyards for miles and miles and miles and miles around. So I was out running, and you never saw a car. And I had my beautiful little 1990s personal stereo with, the orange
Yeah.
ear things on them. And I
Yeah.
was listening to Simon and Garfunkel. And next thing I heard this voice shout, "Run." Okay.
Hmm.
So being a 17-year-old, I thought there's somebody behind me now making fun of me because I am running. So I looked
Yes.
around and there was nobody there. So I kept running. And a minute later, the voice came, "Run, run, quick." And I literally stopped and I kind of turned a 360 in the road and thought, there's nobody there. I took off my headphones. There was nobody there. There wasn't a sound. Then this car came past. And I remember because, when you ever watch something and it happens in slow motion,
Yes.
and I can still see these five guys in the car, right? And it was a small little hatchback style car. And the music, they had really loud music on, like duff, 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 duff as it's going past. So the car passed, went off on its way, and it
Okay.
was all quiet again. And I thought, I don't know what's going on here. So anyway, I turned back on my Simon and Garfunkel and off I went. And next thing I heard, "Run like F." Okay. And I
Okay.
was like, oh my God, there's something going on here, right? So I turned left and I ran into the vineyard. And the vineyard's all slope away from the road, right? And so I ran down into the vineyard and I jumped in between two rows of vines and I hid and I thought, oh, thank God nobody can see me because I feel really stupid. Okay. When you're 17, you get really self-conscious of these things, don't
Yeah,
you?
for sure.
2 seconds later, the car came back. And these 5 guys got out of the car, and I could see them because I was looking upwards towards the road. And they started looking, they kind of spread out at both sides of the road, and they started, they picked up sticks and started beating at the bushes as they were going along. And I was like, they were talking in German. I had some German, but they were talking so quickly. And all I could hear in my ears was my heart. When you're terrified, all you can hear, dum, 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 dum. What am I going to do? What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And one of the guys was about only 1.5 meters or 2 meters away from me. And the guy up on the road shouted something. He must have said she's gone or whatever. And they got back into the car. They must have spent about 20, 25 minutes looking. And I was getting ready to run because I thought if he comes another like 6 inches towards me, I'm going to run. So anyway, they left and I stayed there for another 20 minutes and then I ran home through the fields. I didn't go back on the road again. And so when I thought about it afterwards, like something saved me, that day. It really did. And it was only years later when I read in a magazine, there was a story of a girl actually in the States who took a lift from a truck driver. And when they stopped for something to eat and she went to the bathroom, when she was washing her hands, she heard a voice shouting at her to run. And she turned around and she said there was nobody there. And when she turned back, she heard the voice again saying, climb out the window and run. And she said she looked and she'd have had to climb onto the sink to climb out the window. And she thought, I must be overtired, I'm hearing voices. And she didn't. And she went back out and got back into the truck with that guy. And he kept her for 8 years before she was able to escape.
No.
And I thought, that could have been me.
It could have been you, yeah.
It could have been me. I heard that voice, but I listened to it because my grandmother always said, trust your gut. It's never, ever wrong,
I know.
Yeah.
That's a good lesson for everybody listening because I tell them, trust your gut, trust yourself. If you have a bad feeling, there's a reason, right? There's a reason.
Trust it.
All we've done is learn to listen and to trust, right?
That's the only difference, isn't it?
That's the only difference.
The only difference.
We have an awareness now.
People call me, they call it a gift, but it's not. I'm not gifted at all. Trust me, I couldn't draw an egg. I couldn't sing a song. I can't do anything like that. But it's just communication. And I tell everybody that a medium is just a translator. It's like if someone came into the room speaking German or Greek or Latin, and I was translating it for you. That's all mediumship is. It's no different.
Yeah, no, I agree. Why do you think spirit hangs around us still?
Because they learn from us. They learn from us because part of our life, why we're here is to develop. It's to learn. It's to grow spiritually. And how do we know the result? It's like we've taken a test. So we have to come back and see how we did.
Yeah.
And so, it's how our children or how our families develop. How did we treat that co-worker? Did we cause somebody to have depression or, so it's to find out, the consequences or the result of every action that we took when we were here. So they come back to see, and, they love us, We're lovable kind of creatures.
We are kind of lovable, right?
They miss us too, so
they do.
It's all good.
Yeah. But I do. I have a lot of people. It's hard. This part is hard on mediumship, and I'll ask you because you're a professional medium too. But you get people who come and they'll say, "I know I'm my father. I feel him. I feel he's trying to tell me something." There's always that. Anytime they have an experience, it's because the loved one is trying to warn them about something and warn them about. And so they'll come to me to ask me, but I don't feel that all the time. Like, do you get that too? Or he must be trying to tell me something. I just can't hear it. I just can't listen. But there's always a fear behind it. Like if they're coming to me, it's because they're trying to warn me about something. There's a fear behind it. Do you get that at all?
Well, yeah, I always get that question, but I'm always saying, every communication isn't negative. They don't always want to tell us something bad. They might just want to tell you, I'm so proud of you, or I miss you. But every single sign from spirit is personal.
Very personal.
So someone might say to me, I saw a feather. What does that mean? And I say, well, what does it mean to you?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter what it means to me. I have my own signals with my own loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
I went to see a medium on stage a few years ago, right? And she was given amazing messages from the stage. Then this boy came through and he said his mother was here and he wanted to tell her that he was okay and he was killed in a tragic accident. And she gave all this information and nobody was taking the message. There was an auditorium of about 2,000 people. Nobody was taking this
Nobody could
message.
take
Right?
it.
No. And she said, I'm going to let this young man go and you're going to be sorry. You know, she was like this, you're going to be sorry when you get home. And all of a sudden, the whole auditorium went quiet. And everybody could see this white feather coming down out of the ceiling, just randomly. You know, it just seems to come down in front of everyone. And she just went, you know, there it is. There's the white feather. It must mean something to somebody. Next thing, this hand went up. And this girl said, I think it might be my brother. And she said, okay, well, he didn't want to talk to you. He wants to talk to your mother. Like she was really, you know, aggressive. She was getting pissed off at this stage. And she said, he doesn't want to talk to you. He wants to talk to your mother. What does that white feather mean? And she said, well, my mom's here. And the mother stood up and she had this coat on her that had like, it wasn't a separate thing, but it was like a feather boa. It was like a feather collar all around.
The collar? Uh-huh.
Literally, this boy had just plucked a feather off of his mother's coat and threw it down where everybody could see it, you know?
So that she would have to raise her hand.
Yes. So my point is that signs are always personal. Okay, they mean something different to everybody. My husband's grandmother passed away last year. She was 91 years old, right? I've known her since I was 18. I met my husband since I was 18 years old. So I've known her, like she was like my grandmother to me. And I remember saying to her, because I sat with her for 3 weeks before she passed, I said, you'll give us a sign, you'll give us a sign, you know, I was on this, give us a sign. So as soon as she passed, I rang the priest and he said, come out to the door and wait for me so that I know which house it is. So I left the bedroom and opened the door to the hallway. We didn't hardly ever use the front hallway. It's always the back door in Ireland. So I opened the door and there was a feather sitting right in the center of the hallway. Okay.
Wow.
It wasn't a wet one that was dragged in from outside. It was like this beautiful feather. Now she was meticulously clean. 91 years old, she would get down on her hands and knees and scrub the tiles. Okay. She literally was sick for these 3 weeks. And it was, I still have it. I have it here in my drawer beside me. It's like that was her sign.
That
I'm
was her
okay.
sign. I'm
Yeah,
okay.
I
I'm
need
good
it.
over here, everybody. Don't worry. Yeah. Oh,
For some
that's so
people, it might mean angels. So it's very personal.
personal.
And you know, we might not be able to tell you why they sent that particular sign at that particular moment, but we can definitely communicate with them now and see what they want to say to you.
So now, no, I love that answer. I love that answer. So we're coming close to time. We didn't even get the chance to do readings, but I just wanted to read some comments really, really quick to you.
I'm sorry.
People were chatting. No, we're good. I love it when it goes like that. Is it Shaylee or Chaylee? I just wanted to shout her out really quick. She goes, she killed herself and was in a coma and on a ventilator for 3 days. I was given the choice on coming back or not. So she had a, was it near-death experience? Yeah. I think that's fascinating. So
I'm sure you've done it too. Like I've connected with people who are in comas and I don't know that they're in comas, and people have come for readings and you're kind of connected with this person. They say, well, they're not gone yet. And I'm like, well, they're here, you know?
They're here.
So yeah, you're literally
I also believe like Alzheimer's and dementia patients, they may go back and forth for, you know, sometimes when they're missing, you know, I believe that they kind of disconnect too. And on that. So I just wanted to say that, I'm going to butcher your name, but give her a shout out. And I'm sorry you went through that. And I would love to hear about your near-death experience. I love that. We'd love to have you on the show maybe and talk about it. Because I saw a program, and I know we're running out of time, so I'll just get really, really quick, about near-death experiences. And everybody's was the same except for this one man. And this one man went to a dark place. And that's why I ask about hell and all that, because his experience was dark. And at the end, he shot up, he said, and then he was met by Jesus and God, or what we would think of be God. And they talked to him and they sent him back. But at first it was dark. So I'm wondering if it was dark to teach him a lesson because they knew he was going back. So I got to go watch the episode again. But it's really, the near-death experiences are really fascinating to me. I think that's where the actual evidence can come from. People who've been there, done it, came back, remember everything, right? So I think it's so fascinating.
I also feel, though, that your first experience of spirit in the spirit world is your expectation.
So
he may have expected
Expected.
to see something dark, you know, whereas the
It's
majority of us
living.
expect to see this tunnel of light, don't we? You know,
Yeah.
so it's whatever our expectation is, because I know, and I've heard it before, and I've read a lot about it, that a lot of people who maybe pass after accident or suicide or
Yeah.
whatever, they tend to wake up in a hospital environment in the spirit world, you know,
Oh,
because that's what they expect, you know,
okay.
and it also stops them from going into shock,
Oh,
you know, which can
that's a
happen
good take
too.
on that. Yeah. No, it's great.
Mm.
Well, gosh, we're already up to time, so we're going to close this out. We'd love to have you back again and chat some more. It was
I'll have to
wonderful.
come back and do some readings. I apologize, everybody. I will come back
No,
again
no.
if I'm invited, and I'll do some readings.
You're invited
Absolutely.
back, of course.
You are invited back. Yes.
Yeah. No, everybody loved it. All their comments. This is so fascinating. This is so fascinating. Yeah, there's a lot of people connecting to like weird things that have happened to them. So it has been
And I love to hear
amazing.
those stories. I'm going to read
Yeah,
through all
no,
those
it's
comments.
yeah. I think it'd be neat to have a near-death experience. I was dead, fully crossed over, is what she said. Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to have someone on the show who could talk about it because I think it's just fascinating. Fascinating. Because
Oh,
what we
I
are,
watch those videos on YouTube like into the
do
early
you?
hours of the
Yeah.
morning. I love them.
I
Yeah.
love it too. I'm really fascinated because I'm like you. I'm an evidential medium. So, I mean, I'm a professional. I have a professional career. And then I do this. So very left brain. So I think why I chose mediumship is because I could prove it, right? There's an element of with evidential mediumship, there's an element of proving. So I do readings and I don't enjoy the psychic readings as much as I enjoy the mediumship readings, right? Because I feel like I can prove mediumship. I can prove it to you.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can give you the evidence. And I'm like you, I didn't do this all my life. You know, I worked
Yeah.
for the Financial Times in London. I've worked in a university, you know.
Yes.
So I did very logical jobs.
Yes.
And it was just something that always worked away in the background.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I do both right now too. I'm crossing both. Spiritual and normal corporate America. I haven't taken the plunge yet, but I don't know. Cool stuff. But anyway, where can people find you, Sandie?
Yeah, so the website is just sandiebyrne.com and you'll find everything that you need to know there.
Easy
Quite
peasy.
simple.
You do psychic
Yeah.
readings, you do mediumship readings. That's
I
it.
do. Yeah, well, I do healing, but I haven't done it obviously for 3 years nearly
Okay.
because we've been online and all this time.
Yeah.
But I am also a trance healer.
Are you a
Yeah.
teacher? Do you teach
I teach mediumship, yeah, online all the time.
online?
So yeah, and I do one-to-one mentorship as well.
Yeah,
So I'm
perfect.
hoping to have a
Very
new
cool.
program coming out in the new year as well.
Okay,
So
good.
yeah, lots going on.
Yeah. So
Very
anybody
cool.
looking for Sandie, there's her website. You can jot it down, and you can find me all social media under the Red Couch Medium. Again, you can find my book on Amazon. So thank you in advance. And Cassie, where can people find you?
Sorry, let me get the BAM runner out of there. Everyone can find me at Stargazers Unite. Basically, Stargazers Unite all across all social media. I do websites, logos, and branding materials for spiritual business owners. So it's kind of my favorite. I get to play in this world all the time. Yay! So yeah, that's where you can find me. And
that's awesome. Well, we want to thank you, Sandie, for being on the show. You were beautiful and wonderful, and everybody thought that there was such an interesting conversation. So thank you for bringing your talents to us, and we appreciate you. And for everybody else, we'll see you next time. Have a good night. Bye, guys.
Good night.